All right. So, settle into a posture that you can hold fairly comfortably for the half hour. So move away from thinking and feel your body sitting on a chair, the cushion. Notice how if you just simply pay attention to your body sitting here, you'll also notice the silence of the mind. So presence is silence. Choose another sense door, listen to sound. Let the sounds come to you. And rather than analyzing or speaking about the type of sound that you are experiencing, observe the knowing of sound. So be receptive and just aware of sound as it presents itself. And notice the silence. So to listen to sound, you can't be thinking about sound. But it doesn't really matter what the sound is. So silent presence. So the silent presence is always available. If we're willing to let go of the fascinations of thought, let go of the past and future, and just listen to the way things are. And just notice we're not trying to achieve anything, just listening. And if the sounds become unpleasant, don't have to get rid of them. Just listen. Now, to sustain the silent listening is not that easy because of the habits of our distracted thinking. But it's a very simple model to meditate. Just listening, receptive. So when you find yourself thinking about the past or future, when you notice that, don't try to get rid of that thought, but come back just to listen. Be very patient with a thinking mind. And especially listen to the silence of awareness. The knowing of the way things are is silent. All right, very simple instruction. See what happens if you try that. So when you learn to listen to silence, you learn to notice that consciousness without sense of self, without the thinker, a kind of invention of stories and so on. So just the silence of listening. Notice there's no person being created through thought. There's just the silence of listening. So make your listening receptive, welcoming, rather than trying to control thought, trying to get rid of thought. Just remember to come back to listening, which is very open and receptive. So there isn't any strain of trying to do something or control the mind. So you have to be very patient, just to remember, listen, silence, and stay there. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Luang Por. Dear Dhamma brothers and sisters, let us put our palms together and request for the Dhamma talk. 3 bows. Brahma Chaloka Hipati Sahampati Katanjalianan Diwaran Ayachata Santi Dasata Parajaka Jatika Dese tu Dhammam Anukampi Mam Pajam. 3 bows.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassa. Hello everyone, hope you're well. Here in Tisarana, the days are getting shorter, so it's dark outside. And we have frosts now, yeah. Frosts are starting, so it's colder. The leaves are very skeletal, blown away, but we had a beautiful autumn. The colors, the reds and the yellows, and the beauty of a Canadian autumn here. So really spectacular. And I just returned from Boston, where I was visiting in New Hampshire, our monastery, Temple Forest Monastery, near the village of Temple in New Hampshire, which is very, very, it's 200 and almost 300 acres of old growth forest. Well, not old growth, but it's 150-year-old forest with massive white pines and maples and oaks and hickory and all kinds of very, very lovely trees. And they're all very colorful now because of the changes in color for autumn. And the Sangha there is thriving. I think they have, gosh, maybe 15 monks and 5 anagarikas. So it's a community of about 20 monastics, and then lay people there, lots of lay people. So they're doing very, very well. Ajahn Jayanta and Ajahn Anando are the abbots, and they have yeah, a lovely, lovely place. And significantly, this Vasa, Lompa Sumedho was spending the Vasa there. So I had a chance to share a lot of time with him, which is fabulous. We have coffee every morning at 8 o'clock, and we would talk Dhamma and reminisce about this and that. So I'm all fired up with Lompa's Dharma. And interestingly enough, the last day, full day there, some of the teachers from the Insight Meditation Society came to visit, to pay respect to Lompa. And some of the old-time teachers know him from way back. So this is a nice recognition of all the work that's been done by lay teachers, by monastic teachers over the last, since the 60s, I suppose. And before that, I don't think there was much Buddhism in North America, but now it's thriving. And so that was very, very inspiring. One of the questions that the teachers asked, or the things they were probing, were basically around the usual topics of awareness, thought. And one of the funny things Lompa, not funny, but very insightful things, he said, our personalities are not old, they're young. They're formed when we're young. And it's hard to go beyond them. So a person who is 80 years old and hasn't really observe their personality and has just maybe indulged in negative personality habits, is in trouble. And personality, I don't know what you would call it, but when you observe your own conscious experience, you can see personality is really driven by thought and emotion. And one of the obviously very important things in the spiritual life is to know that you are not your thoughts. If you think your thoughts, you're in trouble. And yet, we can very much believe in our resentments or our conceits or our whatever it might be. And that really doesn't liberate the mind. So someone who's very opinionated is different than someone who knows they have an opinion. Not wrong to have an opinion. We need them. We need to assess, judge, analyze. These are okay. But something, for example, just attaching to an opinion usually puts me in opposition to someone who disagrees with my opinion. And that opposition can be, I can feel intimidated, or I can try to oppress the other, or yell at them, or whatever it might be. But to know you have an opinion, and that the opinion is perceiving life in a certain way is fine. And then to know someone else has a different opinion, and to see that you think they're wrong, you can be aware of that, can't you? If you're not aware, then of course one is just a victim to thinking, opinions, judgments. And so a lot of our personality is that way. It's based on childhood structures, on social preferences, on aesthetics, who knows what. What we don't tend to do is we don't tend to listen to silence. And I'm not talking about external silence of the environment, but actually the silence that is consciousness all the time. That's always available. But our attention is drawn to so much thought, past, future, analysis, judgment. And that's obviously very natural, because we do have to think through programs that we're going to do tomorrow and consider and analyze the mistakes and successes that we might have been involved in the past. So there's nothing really wrong about past and future. But when past and future thinking is based on a personality, it's different, isn't it? Based on me being a person with my various emotions and judgments and that. So what is the taste of self-thinking as opposed to pragmatic thinking? What does that feel like? We all know that. So pragmatic thinking would be an analysis of a problem, thinking through what might be done, trying to do it. That's okay. But self-thinking, I-thinking, my thinking has a particular kind of taste to it, doesn't it? We call it ahankara mimamkara. So me, and it seems very, very real. I am this person in this world with my habits and preferences. So let's say if I feel like maybe I've said something which is not all that skillful, and I walk away from it, and then I feel, oh, I should be like that. I should be a better person. Oh, I should have done that. And why did I do that? That's a different kind of thinking than pragmatic thinking. Obviously, it's I thinking, my thinking, me and my thinking. And that's our personality, isn't it? Isn't that one of the ways we might define it? Personality also defines, I suppose, what kind of aesthetic tastes I have and such like. But the I making, my making, the I thinking, my thinking is something that we need to constantly remember. This is an object in awareness. This is not who I am. People who don't see that can be, let's say, if someone is racist. I'm taking the extremes of negativity there, but let's say someone's racist and they have a perception about another culture or whatever being inferior, then they look at that person and then they make thinking judgments. So that person is inferior or whatever, and they actually believe that. They believe that is a truth, and that's thought, perception, cultural conditioning. And so then the person becomes victimized by that and cruel. But if you see you have a kind of sense of a racial stereotype, and you just see, oh, that's just a judgment. That's just a perception from television, from culture, from my reading, from my family. And you let go of that, or you notice that as an object, then you can begin to move back to the silence of the heart and mind. And in the silence of the heart and mind, I think that's where you really connect with things, because you're not intruding on them with a filter of judgments and all the rest of it. And so silence is so elusive, but I think they're very important. When you come into a monastery like this place, that's the first thing you notice. Everyone notices that. Or any of our monasteries or an empty forest, we notice the silence. And I think we love that, don't we? Everyone says, oh, it's so silent. We love that. So the external environment can be helpful. I guess noticing silence in New York City might be more difficult. People walk around on headphones. Maybe they use silence with headphones. But when you start to train in a way in meditation where you're not just trying to control your thoughts, or and vice versa, you're not just believing in them all the time. You start to have an option of noticing silence before thoughts. Like right now, I'm just wondering, what am I going to say? And there's silence there. And then I say a few words. And the silence is there again. It's not so far away. Now, I'm not trying to control myself to notice silence. I'm not trying to get rid of thought, but I'm also not engaged with any kind of objective thinking process. I'm just allowing the mind to be what it is in a kind of restful, receptive state. And there it is, there's silence. So simple. Now, to sustain that, first of all, I have to have some interest in it. I have to be interested in that. If the monk says silence is cool, okay, that's good for him, but I'm not really that interested in it, well, fair enough. But why might it be interesting? Well, it is attractive in a way to me, but also from silence, I can notice how the sense of self arises and ceases through thought. When I don't have any space in my mind, when there's no silence, and I'm just running from one program to another, internal program of worrying or resenting or fantasizing, it's just an endless stream of attachments, an endless stream of self, an endless stream of emotions. It's not very restful, and it doesn't give me a chance to discover the true peace of the mind. But if I start to question that very habit of being engaged in thinking, just that very habit, well, do I always have to be engaged in thought? Now, that's different than trying to get rid of thought. I think many meditators, myself included, I spent lots of time trying to get rid of thinking, because I always felt that silence is such an important part of my experience, but also some of my thoughts were horrible. Worried thoughts, angry thoughts, resentful thoughts, driven by emotions which aren't so pretty. But getting rid of things is still violent. It's not really peaceful. So what I try to do is to develop I pay attention a lot to the attitude that I'm bringing to this situation, the attitude of mind or the attitude of attention. And I find very, very helpful simple words like openness and receptivity, welcoming. These are simple words, and you hear them all the time in meditation. And why is that? Why are they helpful and important? Because they're not trying to create any kind of experience. They're not trying to dominate or get rid of or become. And the whole realm of Buddhist suffering, or the whole way the Buddha was talking about problems that we have and the suffering we have, is this constant being caught up with desire to be, desire to become, distraction. So receptivity isn't like based on desire. It's just an attitude that is not requesting that our experience be in a particular way. When I just say to myself, well, what's the sound like now? It's a question that brings me to silence, the silence of listening. That's very fruitful because it's not based on desire. As soon as I start to think I don't like that sound, or what is that sound, I try to analyze it, or I want a different sound, or whatever I do, then I'm more concerned about the sound, which is okay. But to be more interested in the listening, now that gives a different kind of possibility. And listening is a very good synonym for awareness. Sometimes we talk about mindfulness, sometimes we talk about awareness, sometimes we talk about consciousness. And that's one of the questions the IMS teachers asked Longpo. Does he differentiate between those two? And he said, not really. He's just trying to get the spirit of the awake mind across. And then someone said, yeah, but doesn't mindfulness mean more kind of, he said, well, you can quibble about the words. You can do that. But really, it's just about being awake. So sometimes we get very, Theravada has lots of different words for different things, and sometimes we get caught up in the definitions and we have doubts. But doubt itself is thought. Doubt isn't silent. And doubt is useful in understanding what should I cook today? What's in the fridge? Have I got enough of my bank balance to pay for my rent? Obviously, doubt is functional doubt is very, very important. But in the spiritual life, constant doubting and questioning and that kind of self-analysis of personality that we can get caught up into, that's usually based on not trusting in silence, not trusting in awareness. So when I listen to sound, it's so silent here, it's hard to get any sound here. But when I just do that, when I just listen, I'm not engaging with the sound. I'm just allowing the sound to be. And then I intuit the mind, which is free from desire, free from becoming, free from resistance, free from distraction. That's a very peaceful one. And not so far away. It's not so far away. So we call that desirelessness, if you want to get a big word on it. Desirelessness. Not a word we hear much, but just in listening to sound, and I could place that word into consciousness. So now I'm using language in a different way. I'm using it as a deliberate word, desirelessness. I can see the space before the thought, and then desirelessness, and then the silence after the thought. And also that particular word for me creates a kind of attitude, because it has meaning. It has meaning. Desirelessness. Now, if I like that word, I do, and I train with that word, and I do, and then I listen, and I do, and I hear silence, and I do, then when maybe I feel uptight in the airport, or there was a traffic, not a traffic jam. I guess it was normal Boston traffic, big city traffic, but the departure time was approaching quickly for the airplane from Boston to Montreal, and the traffic wasn't moving. So the first thought is, oh, am I going to make it? So I wasn't really anxious because I had someone with me. I've had it where I have no one with me, and then I really get anxious, missing my plane, being stuck in some. Where did I did get stuck one night. We don't carry money, we monks. We have a ticket from A to B. We're usually from A to B to C to D. So once I got stuck in C for a night, missed the plane. It wasn't my fault either. Then I got anxious. And I said, I don't really want to spend 6-10 hours in an airport, but then I could know that I couldn't do anything about it. Didn't have a cell phone then. So having practiced desirelessness, listening, attitudes of openness, knowing thought, then all of those practices then click into place quite naturally in the more fraught times of one's existence. So in the airport, plane's gone. I think the first time, this was 1977. And I was traveling with a monk who's now passed away, Ajahn. We were traveling for the first time, leaving Thailand after I had been away from Canada for 7 years. Thailand, I was in 4 years, going to Buffalo and Toronto. He was from Buffalo. And we had a connection. We got the most cheap, there wasn't much money around then. We got the cheapest airline ticket possible. And I think it was Pakistan Airline to Dubai, and then something Pakistani Airline to France, and then something from France. And something in Dubai delayed us. There was some governmental plane coming through. So we made it to Paris, and we didn't have a ticket, couldn't get across. So it was quite anxious. We didn't know anyone. We didn't have any money. No one was, Air Pakistan ticket wasn't all that negotiable. And so then you just see the anxiety and the worry. And then some gentleman comes along who's on the same flight and buys us a hotel ticket. I think, oh. And he was working for UNESCO in Thailand, and he was on the same flight. He sees two bhikkhus. He kind of knows where they're at. And he said, well, look, listen, I'll shout you a hotel, because our only chance for a flight was the next day. So we go to a hotel, and then we make it back to the De Gaulle airport, one of the airports. So now we try to get an exchange for our ticket from Air France or something. And I said, oh yeah, we can put you on a flight, but you have to go to another airport. You have to take a bus. We have no money. So the lady at the counter says, oh, we'll give you a free bus ticket. So we finally made it. But all the time there was a bit of anxiety. So that was the magic of the trip. In fact, when I reached New York, it was one of the New York airports, then this is the first trip out of Asia, right? Without money and all that. Then I go to the immigration officer coming into the States. Ananda got through, he's American. And the immigration officer asked me, how much money do you have? I said, nothing. And he says, oh, you shouldn't have said that. Go sit over there. I said, oh God, this trip's never going to end. So then I'm anxious again. And there's anxiety, feels this way. Just be receptive. Then I was. I wasn't so good at it as I am now. I was probably shaking in my boots. And then the more senior person or whoever interviews characters like me, he calls me over, and magic again. He says, you're a monk from Thailand. I said, yeah, how did you know? Oh, I was stationed in the airbase in Udon in Thailand. How long do you want to stay? I said, well, it's only a few weeks. Take 3 months, or I don't know how they work. Anyway, I got a good entry into America, but all the time the anxiety's happening, and all the time I have to deal with it. So we have that. We have the conventional realm of problem solving. You use your thinking and emotions as skillfully as you can, but then there's always the background of a me worrying, well, this is going to work, or why did I ever leave Thailand, or whatever the mind is creating. That's the I making, my making, isn't it? We always have to be very attentive to that. If not, we just we get stressed out. So these simple exercises of being in a meditation situation where it's safe, where maybe nothing is really impinging on you so much, just learning to be receptive to the way things are by listening. It's a simple exercise, but it gains great power because of the skill of the exercise and the repetition of the exercise. It has its own fruits, but for me, just the restfulness of meditation, the abiding in silence and the kind of purity of that abiding is very, very restful and encouraging. And it also it's a kind of, it's a state where insight arises very easily. You see very easily how things are, maybe where your attachments go, or just some assumptions you've made, or more profound insights from silence rather than from thinking and analysis. One of the monks who was in the car that drove me to Boston Airport from Temple Monastery, he was a mathematician, PhD in mathematics. And I asked him what work he was doing. He was doing research in Brussels on higher mathematics, kind of post-PhD research. And he was telling me if he knew now what he didn't know then about letting the mind relax, he probably would have been a better mathematician, because he didn't know, because the problems he had were obviously very heady. Math is that way. And he kept trying to drive a solution with thought, trying to arrive at a solution with thought, and realized that if he had just relaxed the mind and rested the mind more and just allowed intuition to maybe solve the problem in a background way, he would have done much, much better. And his professor was that way. He's much more creative in that way. So silence allows for seeing things clearly, but you can't touch silence by violence. In other words, you cannot touch it by getting rid of thought, but you do have to be interested in it. If one is only interested in the thinking mind and trying to get rid of thinking mind, because it's the same thing, still involved with that, then of course silence won't be available. And that's, as I think many of you know, is one of the words I really like to use, availability. It's a kind of strange word, but when you're engaged with thinking, and when the thinking is really not necessary, then you're not really available to silence. Or if one is engaged in media distractions or whatever it might be, just absorbed into news sites or whatever it might be, and that's all the mind is only outwards, then we're not available to silence. And when we talk about the three types of craving in the Four Noble Truths, one of the craving is craving for sensuality. And that's the tendency to always be consuming information or experience or sound. And that's not a moral issue. That's just an unavailability issue, if I could speak that way. You're not available. There's nothing wrong with looking at news sites or listening to music or all those things. But if the mind is always needing that, not that music can't be used as a way of bringing you to silence, or the objects can bring you to silence. Art can do that. Nature can do that. But if it's just a matter of consuming, that's a different experience. Like if you look at a really profound piece of art, that can bring your mind to deep silence. Or you look at just a treescape in New Hampshire, just gorgeous colors of yellow, that can bring you to silence. That we call awe, not the awesome that people use nowadays, which is much degraded, but the true awe of the mind when it touches silence. So art can do that, music can do that, things like that. But consuming experience is different. The attention isn't in silence. The attention is very much on the object. And there's quite a lot of strain in the head. It's not, the heart maybe not so open. So that's one way of thinking. That one of the things that this teaching suggests is to let go of that need to consume all the time. Not just to save the planet, that's okay too, but actually for a more profound possibility that you're available to the silence of the mind. And then the other two kinds of desire, the desire to become or desire bhavatanha or desire to get rid of, it's like the desire to get rid of is a lot of resistance to life. I don't want this pain. Someone just told me their father has COVID, and he's just so fed up with the body and doesn't want this. He says, take him out in the field and shoot him. And really sad drama of his mind. And that's resistance to the way things are. And then you're not available. If I'm resisting physical pain or the environment or the social situation I'm in or whatever, if the resistance is around moral issues, sure, that's the functional kind of resistance. But just this desire not to have the world the way it is, not to have the body the way it is, not to have life situations the way they are, they don't allow this sense of, but it's like this. And then from that, you have the silence of the mind. So resistance is a huge thing we need to understand. So one of the words I use there is non-resistance. I'll put that into my meditation. I'll be sitting and then I'll just maybe feel some discomfort in the body and I'll have non-resistance. And then listen for the silence after the word, but also create an attitude in the mind of non-resistance. And then becoming the third, the sense of always becoming something, always attaining to something. Jhanas or Sotapatti or Anagami, all these different Theravada words of attainment. It's quite stressful if you start looking at it that way, because the idea of Theravada Buddhism, it's a Kalika Dhamma, it's timeless, it's here now, it has to be here now. So if I'm already programmed with an idea that I need to get something or get rid of something, I'm not in the here and now. I'm not available to the here and now. And so a lot of people get caught up with these different, either their own experience, which we have. We've experienced something in meditation, it's been maybe very blissful, and then we just try to get it back again, That's becoming at Bhavatana. Or we read about something that someone says we should attain. That becomes Bhavatana. I have to get this. And if we don't see that, then we're not available to silence. Silence is always there. So if you start to put that kind of language into your meditation practice, non-becoming, not going anywhere, welcoming all things, rejecting none. You hear a lot of this kind of language. And the way Lompa defined that was unconditional love. It was interesting how he evoked that. That came to him as he was talking, and one of the lay teachers, who I don't think had heard Lompa teach much, he said, "What did you say?" I said, and he said, "Well, unconditional love. Isn't it obvious?" But love not as romantic love, not love as you love it. And that's a difficult word with love, that it implies liking and so on. But this kind of real openness of the way things are, this silent appreciation or knowing the way things are. And those are things of the heart, they're not of the head. The head is for analysis and so on, but the receptivity of our beings more from the heart, isn't it? More from the silence of knowing. And we can remember that. That's not an attainment, it's a remembering, because we'll touch that quite often, actually. One might not notice it. Maybe you'll see something in your natural environment, your mind will stop and be open and attentive. Or someone will do something really lovely for you, and you feel very grateful and open and attentive. And cultivating this kind of silence and openness is something that isn't just done through too much thinking. It's not done through getting rid of thinking. It's more done through pausing, resting, waiting, these kinds of words. And if you use that language or those attitudes in your own meditation, they'll come forward in your life. It'll be very fruitful, very helpful. Okay, I'll leave that for your reflection.
Thank you, Lumpur. Dhamayam Dhammakataya Satu Karang Dadamase Sadhu 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 Anumodami. Thank you, Lumpur, for sharing about that silence is always available, and also being available in our life, available to the silence, and desirelessness. So now we would like to open up the floor for questions and answer. So if you have any questions, there's a raise hand button. Please ask question, keep it short, sweet, and to the point, and also related to the practice. Please click the raise hand button at the Zoom panel and wait for us to unmute you. So anybody has any questions? Okay, so we have Miri. Okay, so
Hi,
you
Mary.
please unmute yourself.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you, Ranpur.
Are you in Perth or India?
I'm in Perth now.
Okay.
Yes, I'm planning to go back to India in just over a month.
Okay, great. We'll see you there.
Yeah. Yes, so just as you were talking, I felt the mind becoming quieter, like just as you were doing that, and I realized that I had a bit of a stressful situation in my life, and I'd been planning, how shall I address that? And, should I send this email and try to make it better? And then just during the talk, I realized that my motivations were coming from ahankara and mamankara, I making, my making. It was just coming from the wrong place. And then it occurred to me that yes, it's very to sort of realize that. And then I guess my question would be, how do you cultivate the silence for skillful action? Then I realized, okay, I'm not going to be sending that email because it's coming from a desire, a resistance for the way things are. It's coming from the wrong place. And I really saw that clearly, and it's going to change the way I try and deal with it. That how can it be put to practical use in one's life?
Well, part of it is getting burned so many times, right? By overthinking. And I think the part of the problem for me in that is the kind of compelling feeling that I have to do something right now. I have to fix this. I have to make a decision. I have to tell party A what they've done to party E, and all of that have to. So there's a kind of pressure in my own way I've worked through. And then there's the other side of me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. And like there's a kind of conflict of ahankara and mamankara, these two characters arguing about what I should do. And then my resolution of that is to say, I will do something, but right now I'm just going to go to the heart and see what this feels like. So that statement to myself, I will do something, appeases the sort of urgent, compelling nature of this. I got to do something. Yeah. I'll do something, but right now I think I'll just go to the heart and feel the heart. And then if I get good at that, then I do find that there's a more spontaneous arising of either a solution in the moment, or a seeing that really it's not my problem, but there's more intelligence functioning there. And it's rather, I think, like the monk who's doing the postdoctorate math problems, where he's overthinking it. And because he's overthinking it, rather than just letting it lie fallow, as it were, he doesn't get such a good solution, maybe. So in the same case, you're going to have to deal with a social situation, but just to trust first that a response can come from a different place, an intuitive, a heartfelt place. But a lot of it comes from being burnt, doesn't it? You just get burnt by just saying this most, why didn't I just leave it alone? Or why did that? So hearing the ahankara mamankara mind is definitely the mind you don't want to believe. And I think all of us, the louder the self-thinking is, the more dangerous it is to follow that. Because that loudness is driven by usually greed, hatred, delusion. That's why it's so loud. So if it's really, really loud, it's like just grit your teeth and say, I'm going to wait. and then allowing the mind to be silent in the problem solving. any sense of strong ahankara mimamkara is, I've always found, usually disastrous if I follow it. Now, the problem with someone like myself and you or whoever is that we do have responsibilities. So then you kind of can feel very intimidated to yourself, maybe not by others, feel intimidated though, I should be able to fix this, or this is my problem, or I have to resolve this, or it's going to go down the tube in some horrible, horrible way. So the attachment to responsibility and position and all of that can be fraught with ahankara mimamkara. And lots of times the mistakes I've made is I've definitely overreacted, maybe because I've not listened to all parties or something, but it's come in my heart where I've suffered a lot is this like, I have, it's my duty. It's my absolute duty to do something about this. This person's being hurt or whatever. And it's not coming from clarity, So then, if just kind of segue on that, then listening to people's problems, it's very hard not to get caught into believing that their perception is the only perception. And although logically one can know, their perception is not the same as if there's some disagreement between party B and party A, right? Party B's perception of party A isn't necessarily what party A is experiencing, right? I mean, we all know that, but somehow the compelling nature of this other person's emotional upset or whatever, often because I tend to be an empathetic guy, I get too drawn into that, I become that. So then the capacity to know those aspects of one's own imbalance in character is important. So just in listening to the other person, am I with the silence of receptive listening, or have I now gone to my head and, oh, isn't it awful? Oh, that's terrible. Oh, life shouldn't be that way. Oh, you poor thing. I'm going to go fix that for you right now. And that's an exaggeration. So then in this receptive listening, in dealing with people, it might be in a situation where you're actually very concerned about their welfare, but you're not listening so much. You're trying to fix something. And that I find I get bad results too, obviously, because then I overinterpret or overreact, and that doesn't help them or anyone else. So that listening consciousness, pays off in all manner of very real situations. All right.
Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Thank you for the question, Maurice. See you in Tiruvannamalai.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Anybody else has any questions?
There's Sue. Hi,
Okay.
Sue.
So we would like to invite Sue to unmute. Sue, you can unmute.
Hi, Sue. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you, Ajahn. Ajahn, I
Have
would
any
like.
snow in Malaysia?
No, it's quite cooling. It's not
What's
so bad.
cooling for you?
It's quite cooling at this time because of the rain.
What temperature?
I think it's below 30. I'm not very sure.
Oh my gosh, that's frostbite.
No, it's considered cooling in Malaysia.
All right. So what's your question?
I want to ask you, you see, sometimes during meditation, a sad thought arises on how I was treated by my siblings, okay? I feel that they are ungrateful. But then somehow naturally, another thought comes up on how happy I felt when I go and see my mom, the happiness of my mom's smile when I told her I'm going to see her. So my question is that a skillful way of using mudita? I am not sure.
Yes, that's, take a picture of your mom and look at her.
No, I didn't take a picture.
Okay, a mental picture of it.
Okay.
Get a mental picture, whatever you want, and bring up her smile, and that makes you smile. That's very skillful. That's using That's using memory in a skillful way, because perception is memory. So your mom is a set of memories and perceptions that you have, and they're obviously very close and dear to you. So when you bring that forth, go to that endearment. Don't think about your mom so much, just feel your heart.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
contrarily, your siblings are also memories. They're also perceptions, memories of being hurt, or memories of being unappreciated. So when you remember your siblings, then you get the other feeling of aversion or
Yeah.
resentment. All right. Now, both are memory.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about memory is that you can know memory as a feeling, and you can also create stories from memory. So with your sibling, so with your mom, I would suggest bring up the perception of mom in whatever way, feel the smile in your heart, and then afterwards bring up the memory of your siblings, but now don't go to thought, go to the heart and see what is the difference in feeling. Do you understand that? Again, bring up perception mom, feel mom in the heart, the smiling mom, your smile, your heart. Then bring up the name of your siblings, one or two.
Yeah.
Name them, but don't go to thought. Don't go to storyline. Don't go to narrative. Don't go to that. Don't go to the history. Go to the very direct perception you have of your siblings. And that'll be here too. It's there too. But it'll be a different feeling. And see the contrast. What's the contrast? Now, can you bring up your siblings and not go to resentment and just stay with your heart? Because if you do, then the perceptions of resentment won't be encouraged through thinking. If I have a perception of someone that has hurt me, and I remember them just through circumstance, that memory then triggers a certain narrative, a story. They did this and they did that, but I helped them and they weren't helpful to me. Now that story reinforces the perception of negativity.
Yes.
How to get out of that is, sure, go to another perception of your mom. Fine, that's good. But also try to when you name your sister, whatever your sister's name is, say, just name her and then say, what's the perception there? And the perception will be the history, the recent history maybe of being ungrateful or whatever. And then just know that that's a perception, that's an object, that's not who you are. Just know that as an object. Rest in the heart with that. Then bring up another sibling. No, bring up your mom, say. Bring your mom, and just rest in the heart there. So what you want to see is that your siblings are creations of your mind through real circumstances, but their perceptions are created through memory and thought. And not to deny that they have maybe acted inappropriately to you, you don't want to always have to go to that storyline, because then you're enslaved to that memory. This is just memory, right? So you want to explore both, that mom is a memory, which brings compassion. If you let go of thoughts of mom and just be with the compassion, then make that more and more universal. But then when your sister, name your sister and just feel that. And watch that try to go to history, thought, resentment, the past, and say, no, not about thought. Where is this in the heart? And this is memory. Perception feels this way. Then you move more to the silence that knows memory. Memory is powerful, very, very powerful. Perceptions are powerful, but they are created through time and so on. So that's not even asking you to forgive or say, oh, may they be well and happy. It's not replacing all of that, but it's just saying, oh, memory feels this way. This is a hurtful memory. And this is an unhurtful memory. Then you're practicing true awareness of perception, sanya. They're very important. Because sometimes, with families are very intense kind of situation, intense relationships. And then when we don't feel love towards our siblings, we'll feel guilty about it. And then we'll say, yeah, but they were absolutely creepy to me. They're horrible. Yeah, but they're your sister. You should love them. And you get into the ahankara mimanka argument. It's not really helping. But if you go to see that sister is a perception, it's a feeling, and it goes to narrative, don't go to the narrative, then you come back to the silence of witnessing. This is a sankhara, this is sanya, it arises and ceases. That's where you find your freedom. You don't have to like your siblings, because maybe they're not likable. But you don't have to hate them. You know, sometimes siblings are creepy.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just the way life is. It's that way sometimes. So you don't have to feel guilty about just a very real human emotion around things like that. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very
Some
much.
nice homework. Some nice homework for you.
Thank you very much, Ajahn, for your suggestion.
Okay, so,
Thank you very much.
right.
Thanks.
Hello, Karen.
Do you think we have time for one more question? Or
Sure, why not?
okay, so I'd like to invite Sister Karen to unmute. Sister Karen, please.
How you been, Karen?
Good, thank you, Long Paul. I gotta admit, I missed the first half of it, so I'm gonna go ahead.
Oh,
Watch here. Sorry.
you get to merit. You were watching the baseball game, were you?
I know that's what happens, right? No. Long Paul, thank you so much for what I caught actually. Lately I've gone back to look at Krishnamurti's talks in 1967 in Switzerland. And I think that really helped me see a lot of your teachings actually more clearly, because it helped me flesh out what you're actually saying. And it's so powerful because I never saw the stress as I making, my making. And that's so true, because that's such a obvious indicator of stress. And I'm sorry, such an obvious indicator of self-making, isn't it? And yeah, so this whole perception of someone that we have in our memory as history, it's so obvious, and yet we don't see it. And
Right.
not being available and all of that, it makes it so, what you say, so fresh and so available. I could not see it before, but because I've gone back to those talks, and because he leads us through the whole process of what really is a memory. And I thought your reference to Krishnamurti some time ago, and I guess I was too lazy to look at it previously. And now I understand why. Yeah, what you're saying clearly. So I just want to thank you for that.
All right. Yeah, memory is it's an object in awareness, and it creates, like, who is Karen? Right? Karen is a bunch of thoughts, but when there's no thoughts, consciousness is there, but this whole personality, Karen, is not there. It's wonderful, really. Not that I deny your existence or something like that. But well, for me, it's wonderful when there's no, there's just the silence. There's no person creating anything. It's just so restful and beautiful. And then you see that it's just thinking. That's all it is. We're all thinking. Good for you. All right. Now the practice.
Long Paul, in a situation where one has to make a timely decision, what is the attitude one should have?
Don't make it a problem.
Okay.
Do the best you can, right? Or realize that, all options might fail too.
But there's a tendency to want to make a decision, and a right one. And I think
Oh, of course, that's why we make decisions, right?
yeah.
But you can only do your best. You know what you do? Flip a coin. Heads, yes. Tails, no. And then if you don't like the answer the coin gives you, do the other one. That's the best way. At least you don't feel like.
But because I was looking at what you're saying, and it's very true. But sometimes in a work environment, or something that requires you to make a timely decision, is the self something in which is required to operate?
Yeah, it's stressful. Just, work is stressful. It just creates all kinds of stuff. That's why it's very important to go home in the mornings and liberate that stuff from the mind, so that you have a way of seeing where the stress arises even in those situations. Because it's, work life is not a monastery, right? It's not a retreat. It's kind of not meant to be stressful, but it is just the way it is. So that's why learning to relax the mind is so important. Okay.
Thank you, Long Po.
How about one more?
Okay. Sister Shomei, I'd like to invite you to unmute. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you,
There
Long
go.
Po.
Okay.
How do we discipline ourselves to avoid catastrophizing things? I mean, I seem to have this tendency when I encounter a situation, instead of making a clear decision, I go through a stressful process of thinking the worst of it before I even come to any solutions. Yeah.
So, are you a drama queen?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay, so that's the that's the conditioning that for some reason your makeup has sort of developed. All right, so it's neither right nor wrong, but it causes you suffering. So to realize that, okay, that's the conditioning. How can I awaken to the conditioning rather than try to get rid of it? I think that's the first step. So awakening to something is accepting it as opposed to resisting it. So how do you accept something? You label it. If you can label, oh, here goes the drama queen, or whatever word you like, humor is good. Humor gives you distance, right? Because being really serious about getting rid of the drama queen can be very seriously stressful. So if you get a little perspective of humor on this, okay, your mind starts to churn up what you will habitually do. Oh no, there we go again, I'm being the drama. Don't do that. Or if you notice that, say, oh, there's the drama queen. I haven't seen you for 2 hours. So you're getting some kind of objective distance with humor, with awareness, and you're not just trying to clamp down on it and fix it. I got to fix this thing. So you're getting more space in the mind, like receptive. Okay, drama queen, how do you feel? That kind of language can be very helpful. And then the whole thing is to understand it as thought and also as bodily feeling. Both are going on. So then if you can label a drama, I don't know if you want to use drama queen, whatever you want to use, it doesn't matter. But you can label that whole pattern of habit in a way that makes it more objective, rather than this, oh God, there I go again. Now I'm the drama queen. Why do I have? That's all a hunkering and munkering. That's self-thinking. When you say, oh, there's the drama queen, come on in, then you're being more objective. You're not just caught in a hunkering and munkering. So that's the first step. How can you awaken to this habit rather than try to get rid of it or be lost in it? And this is one suggestion, labeling in a kind of way that gives you the space. Then you ask drama queen, hey, drama queen, how do you feel in the throat? Hey, drama queen, how do you feel in the shoulders? How do your eyes feel? So you start to inquire into the nature of this habit as a physiological manifestation, as well as a thought manifestation, because both are happening. The thought, the story is there, but also the heartbeat is different, the throat is tight, the breathing is not open, the heart is clenched and all that. And then what's very good to do is to, noticing all that, begin to open up the breathing channel. Open up your throat, open up the chest, let the breathing go all the way down to the hara, relax on the end of the out breath. Not to get rid of this now. If you try to get rid of it, you'll still be violent, but actually to just say, oh, wow, there's a lot of tension there. I wonder what my throat feels like. I wonder if I can feel my throat opening and my chest opening, and then my hara opening, end of the out breath. And then you lose it again. And you'll be lost as a drama queen for another 10 minutes. At some point, something had happened, phone will ring or whatever, and you say, oh, hey, drama queen. And that's what you have to do. You, although this is easy to understand, the habit is compulsive, obsessive, and just has no more space in it, and you totally believe in it. But at some point you notice it because you're asking that question, then you want to come back to a sense of opening rather than trying to get rid of. All right, that's very important. When you notice a drama queen, say, don't try to get rid of it, welcome it. Feel it. Oh, drama queen, come on in, have a cup of tea, that kind of attitude. And then get to know your body intimately with the tension of the habit. Yeah, that's the sort of, that general principle applies to so many things. So make it something that's interesting, that you're going to explore and understand, rather than you have a problem, that you're wrong. You know, I have this drama queen problem, I'm a terrible person kind of thing. No, this, you know, you're trying to get inquiry, interest. How can I understand this? That kind of attitude. Okay, there you go.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Lumpur. I think it's a very good practical tips for us to remind ourselves, don't make it a problem. So
you go.
now, so now I would like to invite Lumpur to lead us in the metta chanting.
Yes, let's do that. Get it up. Okay. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm, and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one share, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again in this world.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Luang Por. And this will be our last session with you for this year.
All right.
Yeah, and we
Okay.
will see you in Singapore for the Buddhamas.
All right. We'll see you there.
Thank you, Luang Por,
So-
please. Yeah.
Thanks everyone for joining me on these. I've learned a lot, and see you somewhere on the internet, I guess, how it works. Okay, be well.
So let us be Anjali position and pay respects to Luang Por and the homage to the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi.
We never know what to do on that, do we?
Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sawaka Sankho Sangham Namami. 3 bows.
That's the Buddha Dhamma. I don't know. That's the
Thank you, Luang Por. So we'll see you again. Have a good weekend.
all 3 times. I'm never quite sure which of the 3 bows. Okay, everyone. Ciao. Nice to be with you. Happy New Year.